I don't know where they select a center. They didn't talk to Jackson Powers Johnson. They didn't talk to Zach Frazier. They did talk to Cedric Van Pran and who's the guy out of Duke? Brayton out of Duke?
Barton,
excuse me. Yeah, Graham Barton out of Duke. They did talk to those guys, more mid-round guys, late second, third, fourth round guys instead of those first, second round picks. Does that tell you anything? Does that tell you if they are going offensive line, they're not going center? Does it change your outlook on really any of this?
Well, so if I remember correctly, Powers Johnson and
Frazier,
those were Senior Bowl guys, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that was where my mind first kind of went. Like, are these guys that they could have possibly had some interaction with in the past?
Yeah,
and it seems likely that it was, especially if they were at the Senior Bowl and Frazier being, so close to home, just being at West Virginia. I'm sure they've gotten a look at him before, and they've gotten some intel on him, in addition to what they did at the Senior Bowl. So I think this might be, to me, that seemed more like just doing your homework on guys in case Powers Johnson isn't there, because he might not be there. Man, I'm already spacing on his name. On the other guy's names, Power Johnson and
Frazier.
I need to get that down. But it seems like just doing your homework if those guys don't fall to where you want them to.
Yeah,
I think the Steelers have to prepare for just about anything to happen in this draft. There are 6 different positions that they could look at with their first round pick, and there are 6 different positions that could be gone or just not kind of align with the slot value by the time they start to pick at 20. So to me, I don't read into that too much. I feel like Powers Johnson is still one of the better centers in this draft. I feel like he's going to go in the first round somewhere. And I feel like, I don't know, I think if he's there, the Steelers have to give really serious thought. It has to be, a Quinion Mitchell or a Kool-Aid McKinstry is there instead of him. Like, I'm taking Jackson Powers Johnson over Amarius Mims, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, if he's there.
I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that. I think you're right there.
Yeah, so I just read it as more of, okay, we've seen this guy. We've gotten a look at him already. We'll maybe focus our attention on someone we don't know as well, in case that this draft doesn't work out in the way that we can get Jackson Powers Johnson. I don't see it as much as, we don't care about this guy, but it's just we've seen what we need to see so far.
I don't disagree there. I think, obviously they met with him twice, I believe, at the Senior Bowl. They obviously met with Zach Frazier. They're going to go to West Virginia's Pro Day. They're not going to go to, I don't think they're going to go to Oregon's Pro Day. There's a slim chance they usually go out west. I mean, I know that the Steelers West Coast scout loves Jackson Powers Johnson and continues to love Jackson Powers Johnson. I was also told that, one of the scouts loves Michael Penix, and I laughed and I said, I'm sure every West Coast scout loves Michael Penix. Doesn't mean he's coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Jackson Powers Johnson, I agree. If he's there at 20, look, I have a tough time with it just because of the way free agency and the draft are shaped. Like, if it was the other way around and free agency was after the NFL draft, which that's how it should be, I think everybody agrees with that one. Jackson Powers Johnson's the go-to. If he's there at 20, there's no questions asked. That's your guy. Zach Frazier at 20, I think, is a stretch. I don't think that you're making that one, but I think you could trade up earlier into the second round, and I think that's a realistic option. I think that's an option with any of these guys. Like, if you go center in the first round or tackle in the first round, and there's a guy like Zach Frazier, if there's a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry or Nate Wiggins sitting there real early in the second round, the Steelers have back-to-back fourth-round picks. They could use one of those and move up in the second round to try to get somebody else that they believe is that go-to, is that immediate starter. I could see that. I think if it shapes out, but the way that the NFL works, free agency going first, if they sign a veteran, I think that changes everything. I think once you sign a guy, whether it's Brian Allen, whether it's Cody Whitehair, whether it's whoever, as soon as you get a veteran on the roster that you believe in, I think at that point, you almost remove Jackson Powers Johnson from the list. I don't think you remove Zach Frazier just in case he's there in the second round, but I don't think you go first round center after you signed a guy and spoke highly of Nate Herbig. And that's the problem with it being right now. Like, we're so early in this that the way it could shape out changes so much. But if they don't sign anybody, if this is Nate Herbig and whoever they draft, if Jackson Powers Johnson's there at 20, I mean, you take Jackson Powers Johnson. He had a quarterback crowd. Like, that's how
Yeah.
People like this guy. I will say when it comes to the centers, I did think that to a degree, and the Steelers aren't always the best with this, but sometimes they're really good with this. Like the Kenny Pickett draft, they were really good at hiding who they wanted and kind of like teasing other guys to kind of boost their stock and ignore some things. When it came to this one, like there's a part of me that expected maybe them to, I don't know, at least show some interest to kind of like tease, like, hey, Jackson Powers Johnson is on the board, or Zach Frazier's our guy. Don't worry about Jackson Powers Johnson, because right before them are the Miami Dolphins, or right after them, and right before them is the Minnesota Vikings. And both of those teams need centers, and you kind of would think, maybe they'd tease it one way or the other to try to either one, have somebody jump them so they could get a different guy that they're looking at, or two, say, okay, look, we'll ease back because we don't want these guys thinking, we're not in at any center. We're just in on, Zach Frazier, not Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't really realize that the Dolphins or Vikings needed centers, but yeah, I mean, this could just be trying to throw everyone off the scent. But I also feel like you've got to have options, like I feel like the Steelers will have, 4 or 5 different guys that they're like, that they have ranked and said, if this guy's here, he's going, we're taking him. If he's not there, we're going with our next guy. And we have a bunch of guys going down the list that we will feel comfortable taking in that spot.
Yes.
Like you said, this draft can go in 800 different directions, especially in the first round. So the Steelers, I feel like, just got to have contingency on top of contingency and be ready for anything. And I agree with your point too about, if they sign a free agent, then they are reaching way. I think they're going to reach like even further back than the second round. I think to find a center, it'll be someone developmental, that they can bring along more slowly.
I agree. Just get a guy like a Spencer Anderson, earlier than a Spencer Anderson, but they believe in Spencer Anderson. Get a guy like that they could say, hey, you're sitting behind whoever for 2 years minimum, then we'll see what's good.